Wow. Another weak attempt at currying electoral favour from Scott Morrison's coalition government. This time it wants to buy off the leftist critics who lionise public broadcasting. This time they've made a blatant bid to try to appease the Green left activists at the ABC. People who, under the law, are required to be objective journalists. Well, the coalition has sought to appease them by handing over more money. Guaranteed ABC funding of $1.1 billion a year of your money for 3 years. Also, they can appease these leftist critics like the Friends of the ABC who campaign in marginal seats and the Voices campaigns at this election who, of course, call for more ABC funding too. And I guess the government thinks if it hands over more cash now, it'll get a little bit less rubbish from the ABC. Stuff like this from last week.
It's a new year, so a good opportunity to clear the air. You've acknowledged today you didn't get everything right and that you understand the frustration people have felt over the summer. But do you want to take this opportunity to actually say sorry for the mistakes you've made as Prime Minister? Not just about COVID, everything from going to Hawaii during the bushfires through to not having enough rapid antigen tests in place, even as you foreshadowed the switch to a greater use of them.
You recognise that people are very disappointed, angry over summer. Your colleagues say that anger with you is very high on the ground too, and that your disapproval rating, recognised in the news poll, it's 58 disapproval, to remind you, negative 19% approval rating, that you are a drag on the coalition vote. Why are you the best person to lead the coalition to the next election?
Talk about a drag, it just goes on and on, doesn't it? Well, let me give the Prime Minister the bad news. None of this funding is going to mollify the ABC or put a stop to its bias. This is not going to stop them misleading the public over climate change, over border protection, over economics, or any of it. The ABC will continue to campaign against Scott Morrison, and their supporters will too. And the public broadcasters will continue to run campaigns in favour of extreme climate policies, in favour of open borders, and often in favour of higher taxation. That's in their DNA. And all the government has done is give them guaranteed funding to continue their anti-conservative crusade. Now, some of you might say it's more like a jihad than a crusade, but the other point is, are they really a Conservative government? Some people say, where is the attack on a Conservative government here? Scott Morrison is not leading a Conservative government in many people's eyes. Well, Morrison, of course, is a social Conservative and a Christian, and that's red rag to the ABC bull, not to mention all the other beasts of the left. But there are Conservative forces in his government, of course, and Morrison has done some important things from a Conservative point of view. Firstly, he secured our borders back when he was in that portfolio, and he's kept them secure as Prime Minister, even against a pandemic. Second, he stood up to China strongly and without equivocation. On these grounds alone, the coalition are a far better proposition for this country than Labor. But yes, they have disappointed many Conservatives and others on the right of centre. I've been sorely frustrated time and again at the lack of spine from the Morrison government, especially in pandemic management, not standing up to the states on lockdowns, restrictions, keeping kids away from school and shutting interstate borders. Morrison must take this stuff on. He must force a national approach on the states, but he's taken a back seat way too often. And as I mentioned, he's been too weak on the ABC too, too weak on the culture wars. Should have scrapped the national curriculum, should have got stuck into the arts lobby for their deeply entrenched political bias, amplified, of course, with public money. Morrison should call out media bias, not bow to it. He should fight for what's right, not give up on it. But for all that, he does still have time to turn around his fortunes and win re-election. There's no doubt he has a strong chance against Anthony Albanese. He has the stronger case to put to the Australian people. And while my colleague here at Sky News, Andrew Bolt, has written a column saying pretty much that Morrison should go before the election in favour of Peter Dutton, I've got to say this would be madness. And why? Well, it goes deeper than just personalities. Dutton is a standout Conservative leader, and it goes deeper than merely electoral chances too. It goes to the core of being a centre-right government, a coalition of parties that carries the Conservative aspirations of the country. And that is the importance of being consistent and respecting voters and respecting institutions. If Morrison contests this election in May, which surely he must, he will be the first Prime Minister to last from one election to the next since John Howard in 2007. Think about that. Over the past 14 years, almost 15 years, not one Prime Minister has been voted into power at an election and then stayed around a full term so voters could cast their judgment 3 years later. That matters. The coalition has got to give voters that opportunity. They've got to stick with an election mandate through one term. Otherwise, they show they've become as superficial, as poll-driven, as factionalised as the Labor Party. And they'd also throw away one of their strongest arguments for re-election, and that is pushing for consistency and continuity at a time of great uncertainty and unpredictability at home and abroad. Their argument should be about the risk of changing horses. They can't wreck that by having another rodeo themselves.